Hello, everyone. This is William K. Murtaugh, Mert Witness 1. Welcome to the Tuesday Drive-a-thon. This is November 11th, 2020, and today we're going to talk about foreign agents and other matters. Field McConnell today is still in jail. His little court date is tomorrow. And tomorrow is going to determine whether or not Field McConnell comes to Florida. And the chances are very, very good that he will be coming to Florida. More on him later. Right now, I'm going to concentrate a little bit on Sarah Dunklin. For she was in court today. At the time of this recording, I don't know the results of her hearing. But I do understand, according to information that I received yesterday, that she hired a foreign agent. Now, what do I mean by a foreign agent? Well, anyone that has ever listened to Chris Hallett, or Kirk Pendergrass, or Field McConnell, or Timothy Charles Homestead, or any of the others in this little group, they would understand that a foreign agent is a regular lawyer, one that is certified by the Bar Association where they practice law. Now, Chris Hallett and Kirk Pendergrass have gone on to this long diatribe about where these lawyers are practicing admiralty law and all this other stuff that they talk about, that they're not really quote-unquote legitimate lawyers, that they're not the ones to go to for your help, I should say. Instead, per Kirk Pendergrass, Chris Hallett, the so-called Postmaster of the World, Postmaster General of the World, excuse me, you gotta get the title right, or whatever the hell the guy is, and others like David Strait, who profess this rather lopsided view of the judicial process. And they come up with all this alternative stuff. And what Sarah Dunklin did, allegedly, was to suck women like Cynthia Abzug into a situation where their lives were turned into a complete disaster. Now, somehow, Sarah Dunklin's divorced husband found out about what she was up to. A good number of anonymous sources and sources that are not so anonymous contacted the gentleman and asked him if he was aware of what his ex-wife was up to, and provided all kinds of interesting materials, the bulk of which was her conversations on the Field Report, the Children's Crusade, plus material having to do with her involvement with Cynthia Abzug and perhaps one more other woman, such as the woman with the 5 children, in possibly breaking the law when it comes to assisting these women. And so Sarah Dunklin's husband went to court last week and was granted an emergency order of protection, and her child and his child was taken from her and given to him until the matter could be resolved today, which is the primary purpose of today's hearing, to go over all the evidence, listen to testimony from at least one witness that's going to testify by telephone, and see what the net result of today's hearing is going to be. Is she going to get her child back? Is she going to get the child back under certain restrictions, or is she going to lose custody of the child? permanently. Now, Kurt Pendergrass won't be there. Chris Hallett won't be there. David Straight won't be there. Again, this is going to be a local legal firm that is licensed by the Arkansas State Bar Association. Now, one would wonder why. If Sarah Dunklin believes so much in what she's doing, for all these mothers out there having trouble with CPS, and she comes up with cockamamie plans like having these women leave the state where this dispute is taking place, scoop up her children, and run off to her little network and get passports, diplomatic passports, paperwork from Chris Hallett, all kinds of stuff. Now, why isn't she doing the same thing? Why is she going out and hiring a foreign agent? You know, all those people out there that have listened to Sarah Dunklin, have listened to Chris Hallett, have listened to Kurt Pendergrass, and have listened to Field McConnell, you might want to take note. That here is someone that didn't practice what they preached. She thought she would be in a better position if she hired a foreign agent to get her out of her little mess. Now, I have to admit, by hiring a bar-certified lawyer, she may have a better chance. You never know. She just might get out of the situation she's in. Now, I'm going to turn to Cynthia Absud for a moment because there's been a number of people that have been concerned about the position I took regarding her case. And it may be my fault that things got a little misinterpreted when it came to her. Now, I am not taking sides on her actually being diagnosed with Munchausen by proxy or any of this other stuff. If she has a legitimate complaint to make to the court regards to CPS, I can understand that. What I am criticizing is the course of action that she decided to take in regards to that situation. Now, somehow, she allowed herself to get involved with Field McConnell, Sarah Dunklin, and these other people. She allowed herself to be persuaded to make some very, very bad decisions. Now, granted, Cynthia Absud was in a bad situation. She had an accusation lodged against her, and because of that, she lost custody of her children. And she was desperate. She went on talk shows. Northwest Liberty News, The Field Report, and a number of others. And she found support. The problem with her situation is she found support from the wrong people. People that persuaded her to run away. As for this alleged kidnapping that she's charged with, or may be charged with, she may beat that. That charge is based on the statements of a 15-year-old child. Now, it can be argued that the 15-year-old child misunderstood. It could be argued that possibly the reporting officer read too much into the situation and exaggerated it. There's all kinds of arguments that a competent, quote-unquote, foreign agent can argue in court. Kurt Pendergrass is not there arguing Absud's case. Chris Hallett's not there. David Straight's not there. The person defending Cynthia Absud is a licensed attorney, member of the Colorado Bar Association. Not some sovereign citizen, not some anti-admiralty court person. A regular, run-of-the-mill, quote-unquote, foreign agent lawyer. That's who's handling Cynthia's case. And so you have two women that knew each other, that had gone down an alternate path together, now have gone mainstream and hired, quote-unquote, foreign agents. For when the rubber meets the road, you have to call in the experts. And bar-licensed lawyers are the experts. Some are better than others. But actions certainly speak louder than words. And the actions of Sarah Dunklin today speaks much louder than any words could ever be spoken. Sarah Dunklin made a wise choice for once. She got herself a competent lawyer. Whether or not there is a satisfactory outcome to today's proceedings is hard to say. Perhaps I'll know by the time I edit this presentation and I can put up a graphic stating the latest, or I'll post something on Twitter, or someone else will post something on Twitter. Because there are people locally watching this case. There are people that have the time to get the information, because I don't. I have a very difficult time getting information because I'm on time constraints. I'm a busy person. I got things to do. And so I rely on other people to tell me what's going on, and I relay it. Vast majority of information that I give you people are the result of others letting me know what's going on. And I appreciate their help. This is something one cannot do alone. You have to have help. You know, it'd be a mistake for me to say that I'm doing this all by myself. I'm not. I have a little network of friends and contacts that keep me updated on things, that do the research that's necessary for me to interpret and relay back to you folks that are busy in your own right. And I may interject my opinion in there. Now, another thing I'm going to address, since this is kind of a random presentation like it always is criticizing I've been getting over not admitting when I make a mistake. And the specific reason this subject comes up is the posting I made in regards to Field McConnell and a $750 million lawsuit that got mentioned in the court records. Now, I reported that Field McConnell had filed a $750 million lawsuit. And as proof, I offered an entry that it had come up in the Wisconsin court showing that Field McConnell had written two individuals, presumably lawyers, in regards to this lawsuit. I was wrong. I misinterpreted what the court said. Now, a source that checked into this did state that the court recognized that they had made a mistake and that it had since been corrected. That what had actually happened is that Field McConnell had written the letter or fax to the lawyers about the $750 million lawsuit, and that he actually had not filed it. I kind of jumped the gun a little bit on this. It's a mistake, and I admit to making the mistake. Now, I have made mistakes in the past, and I am going to make mistakes in the future. Now, I have a tagline I use. I say, I stand corrected, because I recognize that I have made a mistake, and I correct it. And once I finally had the time to sort out everything and see exactly what happened and how it happened, I realized that I had jumped the gun and misreported the lawsuit. And I apologize for that. But again, I am not perfect. I'm a retired truck driver that runs a YouTube channel. I am not a professional reporter. I may get a few things wrong. And when I get these things wrong, I don't mind being politely corrected. Now that's an important word here, politely. Now I had a couple individuals, both on Twitter and one on my YouTube channel, that made snide and rude remarks. And that's not necessary. We are supposed to be on the same team, I thought. Because the individuals that made these criticisms also don't care for Phil McConnell and his shenanigans. And so I found it a little bit annoying that rather than say, I think you're wrong, this is what actually happened, could you please check and correct your mistake? That would have been a better way to handle it instead of telling me that I need to take up knitting or some nonsense. That was rude. It's common. People talk that way, but it was rude. And then another thing that's come up, different subject, is someone that takes issue with the way I do my presentations. That I take too long, I have long pauses and stuff, and so forth. There are separate reasons based on what you're talking about on my channel. If you're talking about my live stream, yes, I do take long pauses. The format of my live stream is that of an informal, loose format where basically all people are doing is they're chatting on the chat part of the live stream. I say things, I read the chats, I answer the chats. And that is the reason for the long pauses that the person talks about. That after I talk about a particular subject or I talk about anything, I will look at the chats and I will read the chats to try and follow the conversation to see if there's people asking me a question or if there's something interesting in the conversation going on in the chat that I'll read. And after I think about what's being said, I'll comment on it. Now that results in me not saying much of anything for a minute or two, or 3 or 4. I'm reading the chat. Now I apologize for this because that's something that I really shouldn't be doing. It's a bad habit of mine. In all the years I've done these chats, it's a habit. But at the same time, people need to recognize that I am not a professional broadcaster. I'm not a professional webcaster. I'm just someone running a YouTube channel, more or less for a hobby, and to discuss things that we may be interested in. In this case, the trial, or the case, more accurately, of Phil McConnell, since he hasn't gone to trial yet. And how we either agree or disagree with whatever conclusions we draw from whatever events happening at that time. And, if they don't like the way I do things, and like what I say and the conclusions I draw and so on and so forth, I'm not understanding why these people are there. Now, they're welcome. I don't care if they're there or not. But I just don't understand why they're there if what I am saying or doing is something that they don't enjoy, don't agree with. Now, I take the criticism and I try to improve upon anything people say. If I'm not paying attention, not saying something, or something along those lines, I'll strive to improve. But again, this is an informal situation where we're all just kind of gathered around a a virtual table. Believe it or not, I'm in a room where we actually do that. We put on our VR goggles and we go into a virtual living room. It's more realistic, and it's something that will be coming to Facebook shortly, where upwards of 100 people can go to a virtual cocktail party and sit around and BS for as long as they want. They can BS for a half hour, they can BS for 5 minutes, or they can go into a BS-a-thon where they're talking for hours virtually, using avatars and all kinds of things. There is something to that extent now, but it's not VR, because you're staring at a screen with a bunch of cartoons on it, and one of those cartoons is you. When you go VR, it's a totally different experience. Something people should try when it comes out. Now, as for what I'm doing now, I'm in a car. I'm driving down a road. Now, if there's a long pause while I'm driving down the road, it's because I'm concentrating on the environment around me. I'm concentrating on traffic. I may be gathering thoughts about what I'm going to say next, or what have you. But largely it's because I'm in fairly heavy traffic driving down the road. I have to concentrate on my driving. And so if something comes up that I need to pay attention to, like a car in front of me or a car next to me or a highway hazard or something, I'm going to pause. And I can't hit the pause button on my recorder because the phone is in a position I can't get to it. And it just is something extra that distracts me from driving. Because basically what I'm doing is I've got a headset on with a microphone, a single ear headset in order to comply with the law. The phone is resting on the seat and I'm talking away. Now there may be times, again, where there are pauses in the conversation, and rather than edit these pauses out, I just let it go. Because this is the way things work. I make this video, usually anywhere from a half an hour to an hour, depending on if I decide to cut it off at some point, rather than spend the full hour or so it takes me to drive to the airport babbling away. And I store it in the smartphone. Now on the smartphone, I have multimedia editing software, audio, video, so that when I get to the airport and I have downtime, either at the airport or going where I'm going today, I transfer the audio from the recording software over into the production software within my editor. Now the editor has to process the audio and convert it over into its own format. This usually takes about 10 minutes. And so then the audio is in the editor. It's in the format that the editor uses to process the video, because the slides in there, occasional pictures and so forth, that's considered, that's the video half of the processing, and that generally is what takes time. Now in the past, I used to illustrate my presentations using slides, using individual pictures that I would pop in there from time to time. And this turned out to be rather time consuming. It was taking me 5 or 6 hours to edit all this stuff in. Now, if I sat down and could do it without interruption, I could probably knock one of these videos out in about 3 hours. But I'm doing it as I get free time. 5 minutes here, 20 minutes there, 10 minutes there. So it takes time. So I came up with just throwing up my logo and maybe 1 or 2 pictures or any relevant documents that may show up. But largely, I copied McConnell's field report because all Phil McConnell does is they slap up the logo for their field report and they do a 45-minute video. And that makes it much faster to do, because the logo's there. All anyone has to do is change the title on the little newspaper and run the video for 45 minutes. And if people want to stare at Field McConnell's field report logo, they can do that. Otherwise, they can background the video and do other things while Field McConnell's rambling off the Bible passages. So that's that. Now, when the video is completed, as far as the editing process, it goes through a number of steps. The software prepares the video for uploading. Once the video is prepared for uploading, I then give the command for the software to upload. It then uploads to YouTube. Now, this can take anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour because of the way that it uploads. I'm uploading through a smartphone, remember, or through Wi-Fi. And it's going into a holding pattern at YouTube. So the video gets uploaded to YouTube. Takes a while. And then YouTube reprocesses the video, because YouTube changes the format and puts it in its own format. This is why a lot of times people find it hard to download YouTube videos, because YouTube changes the format. I usually put things up in MP4. YouTube changes it to their own format extension. Just the way YouTube does things. The problem is because YouTube does that, the file has to be converted over to their format. And so it's a 3-step process. It takes about, from the time that I upload the video until it shows up on YouTube, can take as long as 3 hours. Sometimes it takes an hour and a half to 2 hours. Depends on the length of the video and so on. My short videos I can usually knock off and get up on YouTube in about 20 minutes. You know, that's a 5-minute video. When I do my short little breaking news ones, it usually takes me a half hour to put those up. Even though it's a 3-minute video. It's all this stuff that one goes through to get it done. And so I hope people will understand that this is why things are done the way they are and things happen the way they happen. Because it's the process of getting these videos online that causes me to make some production errors, as you would call them. The long pauses, leaving in the long pauses rather than editing them out. Because people that do podcasts professionally or on a regular basis, and that's all they do, they edit all these mistakes out. They edit out the long pauses, they edit out the coughs or the sneezes or the little ancillary noise. They use a sound booth instead of the driver's seat of a car to do their stuff. And so everything gets trimmed out to be a quality video. Agent 19 is a perfect example of how a podcast or a video should be done. He's extremely good at it. He's got a good narrator voice, number one. He could be a professional voiceover if he wanted to. He times his videos. They're edited very professionally. And they're not excessively long. They're adequate for the subject at hand. They're either 3 minutes long or they're 20 minutes long, depending on what it is he's discussing. He does a very, very good job with what he does. Now, the closest I can come to my webcasting, my webcasting style, I suppose, would be Montagraph. Because Montagraph is another example of an informal chat. He basically spends the Monty-thon just having general conversation. He may have a specific subject he's discussing, but it's general conversation. He'll look straight into the camera periodically, but you will notice that he looks off to one side to read the chat. And that's probably because he's got his webcam in one location and his chat computer in the other. Now, I don't know his setup. I don't know if he's got more than one computer running, or what he is doing is what I do. He's got a webcam or some kind of a camera hooked up to the computer, presumably a laptop, and instead of having the computer directly in front of him, he's got it off to one side, so he has to turn to look at what's on the screen, and so he's not looking at the computer. Now, in my early live streams, before I changed things around, that is what I was doing. I had my camera to the left of me, to one side. And so, instead of seeing me head on, you were getting a profile shot. And I would look at the audience. I would look at you every once in a while, but I was primarily looking at the chat. And I got a complaint about it. So what I decided to do is I moved the position of the webcam so that it was directly in front of me. And what this did is I was facing the audience more often. I was either able to look up and look directly at the audience, or at the minimum, I was at least facing the audience. And it seems to have satisfied some of the critics. But the new criticism of the long pauses and so on and so forth have cropped up, and I'm going to do my best to correct it. But again, like I said before, because I am reading the chats, I am focusing on what the contents of the chats are. There may be long pauses in what I'm saying. Or, if I happen to want to bring something up on the screen, I'm doing that, and that takes away from the time. I'm going to mention that a little bit. We're getting a little bit technical today, but I wanted to explain to those that don't do live streaming how the process works in some cases, so that you understand why things are done the way they are. A lot of the more seasoned and professional webcasts you see out there prepare a script, so to speak. They have a bullet point sheet that tells you exactly what you're going to tell your audience that particular day. They're more organized. In the case of Northwest Liberty, he does interviews. And so he pre-screens his interviewees. They talk over what they're going to talk about, or they know what they're going to talk about. They do checks to make sure that the telephones work and everything works. And then they go ahead with the show. It's all prepared in advance. I try to do the same thing. Other shows, especially those that do something that looks like a PowerPoint presentation, prepare their material in advance. If they have a video they're going to put on, they have it on hold. If they have documents that they're going to show, they have them on hold. And so on and so forth. They have the material ready to go. And they have the software set up so that all you got to do is click a button and the thing shows up on your screen. And then you have what you call a preview screen and a broadcast screen. The preview screen is where you line up your shot. You know, if there's a picture of me there, I change that over to a picture of somebody else, or a picture of a building, or a screenshot of a legal document or something. That is on the previous screen. I then hit what's known as a transition command on the software that I use, and that picture moves from there over into the live shot, which is what you see online. you don't see all this preparation I'm doing in the background. You don't see me moving images around, resizing images, or any of that. That's all done in pre-production. And then when it comes time to put the thing on the air, I click the button and up it comes. That's how editing software works, and in this case, this is how OBS works. OBS is free software that you can download to use in live streaming. There's a bit of a learning curve, but it's an excellent piece of software, and it's free. It's open source software. And this is what has caused a lot of people to get into live streaming, because they're able to get a professional quality live streaming application for free. Now, there's others out there that you can buy that you're going to pay for that work almost the same. And, I have one of those. But I don't use it because as I have started to learn how to use OBS works just fine for what I do. I don't need the other pieces of software, so I probably won't use them. So, now that I've kind of given a technology lesson, that is basically how these things work. And you have to understand that what you see on the screen, there's generally a lot going on in the background. A lot of prep being done. Formatting, resizing, going into your computer to get these images out. Now, another thing that happens, and an example of this is when I was putting up the pictures the troll was sending me on Twitter, is that the troll would put up pictures of people, and somebody suggested I do a guess the picture segment where I bring the pictures into the room, show it to people, and let them try and figure out who it is in the picture. And so what I would do is, when the troll put up a picture, I would download it into the computer, turn around, and re-upload it into OBS, prepare it, and then transition it over into the live stream so you people could see it and either comment on the image or show who it is. And because there's a lot of manual work to do that, sometimes my attention span goes. And that's what happened that particular night, that because of all this pre-production that I'm doing, and while live on my Murdathon, I wasn't saying very much. And I don't like doing that because of that. When I have to be distracted on stuff like this, it takes away from the live stream, and I understand that. So I'm going to try and improve upon that. But to those who don't like the way I do that, I do apologize, but this is an informal program. It's an informal chat. These drive-a-thons are informal. And so they're not going to be perfect. They're going to be flawed. There's going to be mistakes made within the webcast. And it's up to you whether or not you want to accept that imperfection. Now, I hope as I keep doing this, keep practicing, that the mistakes will fade and that I will give a more enjoyable experience to my audience, including my critics. So bear with me. Continue to criticize, continue to point out mistakes, but please don't be so damn rude. I mean, some of you are nice enough to tell me what I'm doing wrong without being rude, and I appreciate that. But the name calling and being rude and the snide remarks, I don't know, it's rude. All I can come up with is it's rude. It's not putting you in a good light. Name calling doesn't bother me. I've been called all kinds of names over the years. I've had to put up with a lot in the past decade, so I'm used to crap. But I think that we can disagree without the personal attacks. There's people that are going to come in to the room to support Phil McConnell. I understand they support Phil McConnell. That's their thing. Why they come into my room, I don't know, other than to disrupt it. I don't go over to Phil McConnell's channel and disrupt it. I don't make snide remarks. I may go over there and look at what he has to say, but I leave the chat alone. I don't comment there as much as I'd like to, because it's not my place. That's their room, their house, their place to support who they support. They support Phil McConnell. I personally leave them alone. Now, if people want to go over there and troll them, I can't control that. I don't encourage it. But that's human nature. People are going to do that. There's people that are going to troll me. And people on my channel don't like it. But I look at it this way. At least I know that I'm getting their attention. Because if they're coming over into my room and making whatever comments they make, no matter how abusive they are, it's a sign that they're paying attention to what I'm having to say. They're paying attention to my YouTube channel. And in the process, they're actually helping it grow, because they don't understand that when they come in and watch my video and make comments, they're adding to my analytics. So in a way, they're helping me out, because the more they visit, the more my channel grows. And the more it comes to the attention of YouTube, and it creeps up on the attention meter. So it's a good thing, I suppose. But this is the nature of these mobile times. I just kind of meander around on the subjects, talk about anything and everything in general. It's not an organized thing. It's kind of like if we were commuting to work and you were sitting next to me in the car. We sit there, we chat a little bit. There might be pauses while we daydream or whatever we're doing. But then we start up a little chat again. That's what we're doing here. Now, I will be curious when I get to the airport, start to check social media and find out if there's been anything on the two cases today. In the case of Cynthia Absuck and in the case of Sarah Dunklin. For now, both of these women have hired mainstream lawyers instead of going through Kirk Pendergrass, Crick Sallet, David Street, and these other people. And it will also be interesting to find out if Phil McConnell is going to make one of his videos today. Because we are now going through 2, possibly 3 days where Phil McConnell hasn't said a word. Actually, I believe it's 2 days. It was Sunday and Monday that Phil McConnell did not do one of his jailhouse Bible classes. Today would be day number 3. Now, there's any number of reasons for it. He might be busy preparing for tomorrow. But there's a persistent rumor that keeps coming up, and one that I cannot confirm, and that is that somebody keeps saying that Phil McConnell is back in solitary. That something he did or said has got him in trouble again, and he got put in solitary. I cannot verify that. I've tried twice calling the sheriff's department, and twice I've been told that because the case is open and that he is under investigation, which is something that they had not said before, that they cannot give information out. Now, this did not register me the first time they told me that. Because it was relatively easy in the past to call up the sheriff's office and to find out his status. when he went into solitary the first time. It was obtainable. We found out rather quickly that he was put in there because of the nature of the calls. But at no time was the phrase "he is under investigation" used. This came out when I called last week, and I called again yesterday. The phrase "under investigation" came out. Now, this term is rather odd considering the fact that whatever investigation there had been in regards to Florida has already been done. All he's doing is he's being extradited on an arrest warrant. He's not being investigated, so to speak. So, if the sheriff is claiming that Phil McConnell is under investigation, it's by someone other than the state of Florida. Which means it might be the state of Colorado. Or federally. So when you think about the sheriff using that declaration, that means that Phil McConnell's status has changed. That he has now gone from someone that's being held pending extradition to somebody that's under active investigation. So this is a clue that things are happening. This is a clue that things are about to get interesting. So, there we are. Have a possible status change with Phil McConnell. I have a status change that may lead to something bigger. Tomorrow, Phil McConnell is going to find out if he's going to Florida or when he's going to go to Florida. So what happens next? Well, again, we look at various possibilities here. Now, the chances are real good tomorrow is the end of everything. That the judge is going to say, look, understand your arguments, they're not valid. Pack your bags, you're going to Florida. Or Phil will be granted another one of his extensions in order to argue more extensively what he wants to argue. Or he may be given one final chance to get himself a lawyer. Or he could win his argument and be set free. The last, I feel, is unlikely, but it's a possibility. He might get set free. And as I said before, if Phil McConnell gets out of this little mess, either up there in the state of Wisconsin or down here in the state of Florida, he's going to set a precedent that it is okay for someone to make death threats on YouTube. That they can say, well, it's entertainment. It's an opinion. It's First Amendment. I can go on the air and I can say that so-and-so should be lined up against the wall and shot. Without trial, without charges, without anything. That someone can be lined up a wall and shot, or jailed, sent to Gitmo, or anything else, because an unemployed pizza delivery driver says so. Now, if people want to be the target of death threats, or they want to see women, mothers of children, targeted for death threats, then Phil McConnell may make that possible. This might be the result of Phil McConnell winning his argument. Then it's going to be open season on people you don't like on the internet. You can make all the death threats you want, and there's not a damn thing that can be done about it. That's what you want, that's what you'll get. You know, that goes back to this expression. Be careful what you wish for, you just may get it. Because this is a distinct possibility that the barn doors will be open and the horse of death threats will be allowed to run. You know, you can have opinions on people without destroying their lives. You can say, I don't like what this person says, I disagree with it, I think this is going on or that's going on, but you don't go around saying that the person should die or be punished for something they didn't say or do. Now, the accusations against the attorney from Broward County, Florida, are false. Blatantly false. Not even close to being true. Yet, people insist on making these accusations. And they make the accusations to the extent that they make death threats. Now, apparently people don't realize that this is against the law. You can't do that. You can't incite violence. You can't make death threats. And you can't make these kind of outrageous statements about people on the internet. It's called cyber stalking. There's plenty of cases out there where people have been prosecuted for this. There was a guy in Kentucky that was prosecuted for it. There's people all over the country that are being prosecuted for cyber stalking. And there's been explanations giving why this was done through a certain segment of the court system. Because, you know, this has nothing to do with the fact that you either met or knew the person. That, you know, this domestic violence thing that everybody uses as an excuse as to why this charge is not valid is incorrect. It just happens to be where these cases are tried. That's all. There's nothing else to be read into it. Now, I will update either on this video or on Twitter or through comments or what have you, any results of today's events that I may hear about. I encourage those who have access to this information to keep me updated so that I can pass it along to others. Because I rely on people out there for information. I don't do this all myself. I'm not a one-man newspaper here that can call up all these different officials and agencies and get this information. I rely on people that have their own resources to report back to me. I then check on their information to make sure it's reasonably accurate, and then I report it to you out there. To those of you out there that don't have the time to track this information down. And I also do have quote-unquote official sources that I use. So I have a mix of sources. You know, we're in this together. We all want the same thing. We want to know what's going on. We want justice for those who are victimized by the actions of these scammers, these criminals, and so forth. And so we contribute, each and every one of us, with information, with insight. And together we will learn, and so on. And I thank those who contribute to me so that I can continue to provide the information as best I can. And so, I'm going to close down now, end this presentation, and wish everybody a good day, wish everybody well. And until later, this is William K. Murtaugh, Murt Witness 1. Have a good one.